Hi, my name is Mitchell Ebenreiter. The book I've chosen to present is the highly acclaimed true story, The Big Short by Michael Lewis. It gives a behind-the-scenes look at what truly happened in the financial world when the housing market crashed in 2008. The underlying message in this book, and what I will try and get across in this video, is that information is power. Every opportunity in the financial world, and many other parts of life, result from someone having information that others do not. Lewis follows the stories of three hedge fund managers who bet against the bonds of subprime mortgage securitizations from 2003 until the housing market's eventual crash in 2008. Steve Eisman, Michael Burry, and Charlie Ledley became three of the most wealthy men on Wall Street. To understand what happened with investments on subprime mortgage bonds, you must first understand the credit default swap. A CDS is essentially insurance on a bond that you can buy to assure that you get paid back if the loaner defaults. CDSs were understood by almost no one in the early 2000s. It was like they were written in a foreign language. One man who was able to decipher what a CDS did was Michael Burry. He was shortly followed by Steve Eisman and then later by many including Charlie Ledley. A CDO is a very large number of mortgage bonds packaged together to dilute the risk for the bondholders. Michael Burry handpicked which CDOs had bonds in it that were most likely to default and purchased over $1 billion of CDSs on them. The fact that you had to receive a license from some of the wealthiest financial companies in the world to even be allowed to buy a CDS shows just how corrupt the subprime mortgage market had become. It was an elite group of investors who only allowed other rich investors the opportunity to invest. Enter Moody's and Standard & Poor's, the two big Wall Street rating agencies. They were in charge of assessing the risk on each of the CDOs, the risk being the probability that the subprime mortgage bonds would default. These ratings would in turn be used to designate a price to the CDSs. Investors wanted the best rated bonds or AAA rated bonds because this rating ensured a low price. They created a fraudulent way to get AAA rated bonds by taking a bunch of BBB rated bonds and packaging them into a CDO to get a better rating. The reason investors grew so attracted to the CDSs were because they were rated way better than they should have been. Moody's was giving the riskiest CDOs a default rate of only 5% when the actual rate was closer to 12%. Many believe the rating agencies may have been coerced by banks with money to do this. While many investors were eager to buy a CDS and then quickly resell it into a secondary bond market to make a profit, Burry, Eisman, and Ledley foresaw the market completely crashing and default rates going sky high. They bought as much in CDSs as possible and sat on them, taking marginal losses and hoping for the defaults. While the three hedge fund managers knew they had the most valuable entities in the financial market at that time, their pesky investors did not. The investors could not understand why they were losing money on these things called credit default swaps, or what they even were. With investors hoping to make big bucks on CDSs, there had to be a company that was going to be taking all the losses. AIG was the main seller of CDSs. They made the mistake of trusting the false bond rating agencies, and this was their ultimate mistake. AIG couldn't believe all these investors were buying billions of dollars of CDSs. They thought they were going to be rich because the risk of default on the loans was so small that there was no way they could lose money. Lack of true information ruined them and was ultimately their undoing. As financial intermediaries became aware that these bonds were being defaulted on at an unbelievable rate, they stopped selling and attempted to buy back all of the CDSs that they could to reap the profits from the insurance companies if the loaners defaulted. While all of the controversy surrounding the subprime mortgage bond market was escalating, Steve Eisman had the ultimate idea. Knowing that Moody's and Standard & Poor had made terrible mistakes with their ratings of bonds, he decided to short their stocks. Eisman knew that when the housing bubble immediately blew up, Moody's and Standard & Poor would be attacked and the price of their stocks would drop dramatically. By shorting them and owning billions in CDSs, Steve Eisman was about to become the most famous investor of the last decade. December 2008 marked the highest drop in home prices in the history of the United States. The housing market exploded, and shortly thereafter, the entire economy was in shambles. Billions of dollars disappeared as millions of people defaulted on their loans. So many lost everything, but those who gambled by betting against the market made unimaginable amounts of money. Steve Eisman, Michael Burry, and Charlie Ledley are a few of the small number of investors that suddenly looked like the smartest people on planet Earth. This story proves just how important information is in today's society. Steve Eisman and a handful of others did genius research and possessed a goldmine of knowledge. AIG and others lacked information and lost everything. We truly live in the age of information.